Hello, welcome to a overcast summer's afternoon in the west coast of Ireland. Thanks for joining me in this video. I'm guessing if you're here, if you click the link, follow the thumbnail on the video, you're probably in your 30s, 40s, 50s, I don't know, and thinking about getting into riding motorcycles. Whatever the case may be, you're more than welcome. Glad to have you here. Just going to go for a bit of a spin today out to the west coast of West Clare, out towards the Hinch, maybe up by the cliffs of Moher. It'll all depend on how the weather holds. Give you a little bit of a background of how I got into riding motorcycles in my 40s, the journey so far, the choices I've made, and you know why I think if you're even slightly considering it, just do it. You'll be a long time dead, as the famous Irish phrase goes. Don't put off till tomorrow what you could do today and all that sort of stuff. Riding motorcycles, there's nothing like it in the world. It's just you on two wheels in the open road. There's a good bit of traffic here today because of the time of year. It's a fairly popular tourist location, so usually a bit of traffic at this time of year. Like these nice people in their caravan in front of me. Just give you a bit of background about myself and my riding experience. So I had a couple of scooters, mopeds in my early 20s, 50cc, no gears, just a throttle, 70 kilometers an hour max speed. So that was the only previous really riding experience I had. I had them for a couple of years. And other than that, I was never on a bike until about 3 months ago. I always had a love for motorcycles. I grew up in a town on the east coast of Ireland called Skerries. It's in the north of Dublin. It's a town that's synonymous with motorcycles. There's two road races there every year, the Skerries 100 and the Killaloe road races. If you're familiar with the Isle of Man TT or the Northwest 200, it's the same deal as that. It's the same series of road races. So, motorcycles were always a massive thing in the town I grew up with. Everybody was obsessed with motorcycles, and it was difficult not to be into motorbikes, into the motorbike scene. Spent a lot of my early 20s driving around all over this country to different road races, following the sport, but never took the plunge into getting a bike myself. Combination of not being able to afford it and focusing on other things in life. I always had a car license for the past 20 odd years, been driving cars, but when you come to riding a motorcycle, especially in Ireland, that counts for nothing. You start from scratch. The process here in Ireland is pretty similar to the UK and probably most of Europe. When you want to start riding motorcycles, you need to do a theory test and get a learner's permit, which is what I did. That's why I'm still wearing this lovely bright yellow L vest until I do my full test. So once you have your learner's permit, you need to do what's called an IBT. I think they call it CBT in the UK, which is a initial basic training. So the way that works here in Ireland, I did it with a local place here near where I live in Limerick City. Bike-wise, motorcycle training is the crowd I did it with, and I couldn't recommend them high enough. Dermot there was an absolute legend. Such a nice man to deal with. So knowledgeable about everything to do with motorcycles and motorcycling in Ireland. If you're from this part of the country and you're thinking of getting into bikes, hit Dermot up for a bit of advice even. He's more than happy to help. So the way the IBT works, it's split into 3 parts. The first part is classroom training. So I went in on a Thursday evening, and basically he just spends a couple of hours scaring the absolute life out of you, telling you all the things that are horrible and all the horrible things that can happen when you ride a motorcycle. And to be honest, that stuff is important. It's important to know because I'm in my 40s and I've been on the road for years in cars, but a lot of the guys doing that IBT are only 17, 18 years of age. They've never had a car, never driven on the road. They're not aware of the dangers that are out there. And when you're on a bike, you've little to no protection. It's just you and whatever PPE you're wearing. People in cars, they're in these big metal boxes. They've all the protection in the world, and you know, if you have an accident with a car when you're on a motorbike, there's only one winner. So it's important to hear that sort of stuff when you're doing the training. The next part of the training then, I went in on a Saturday morning and we did yard work, which is basically spent the best part of a day on a Saturday getting used to the feel of a bike, releasing the clutch and pulling off, then backing the bike up, doing it again. I kind of went into that first part of the training a little bit cocky because of my moped experience, and I thought, you know, the biking instinct would just kick in and I'd find it very easy. And boy, was I wrong. I got a shock when I started. Really struggled at the start with, you know, using the clutch and, you know, getting the bike in gear and pulling off. One thing you don't really understand when you've been driving cars for years, because like when you drive a car, you're told the clutch has to be all the way out to pull off and to drive the car, and if you don't have the clutch out all the time, you'll do damage to the clutch. It's very different on a motorcycle. Motorcycles have what's called a wet clutch, and it's actually, you know, you have to get used to feathering the clutch to control the bike, especially at low speeds and when you're pulling off. So it took me a little bit of a while to get my head around that. But once I got my head around that, I was fine. So after we did that, we just kind of riding around in circles, in and out of cones, doing U-turns, very slow maneuvers, first and second gear, really just getting comfortable with the bike. On the day, I started off on a 125, Yamaha 125, and then progressed up to an MT-03, which is a 300cc Yamaha bike, driving around in first and second gear, which is pretty cool. Good to get a good feel of the bike and kind of had a good bit of confidence then at the end of the day. So the third part of the training then, you have to do 120 kilometers on the public roads. Now, from what I'm told, different instructors, different training centers do this differently. Some like to split it up over, you know, a few weeks or a few different sessions. But the way Dermot does it, he takes you out for a full day. And that kind of suited me because, you know, I just wanted to get it done. I rocked up on the day to do the road training. And I was pretty nervous, I have to say, going into it, because it's one thing riding around a yard on a bike, but going out onto the public road with, you know, everyday traffic it's pretty scary for the first time. I arrived on the day thinking I'd be on probably the 300cc bike that I had been on previously, but no, I rocked up on the day and there was the MT-07 sitting there, which is 700cc Yamaha bike, and Dermot says, "You're going out on that." There was another guy there doing it on the same day, and he was given the 300. It kind of scared me a little bit, but you know, a bit of bravado, just kept my mouth shut, said, "Zip it, let's get it done." I'm a fairly big guy. I'm 6'2", about 100 kilos. The other guy that was doing the training was a smaller stature, so I assume that's why Dermot made that choice, and I suppose maybe he took into account some of the previous moped experience and stuff I had. But anyway, I went out on the 700cc bike, did a bit of everything on the day, which was great. So kind of went out around an industrial estate first, which was pretty quiet. I just drove around, got used to, you know, junctions, cornering, using indicators, all that sort of stuff. Then went into the city, got used to some slow city riding, you know, first and second gear, traffic lights, lots of traffic, dealing with junctions and people crossing the road and everything that goes with driving around the city. And from there, then we went out onto some more kind of public B roads and that sort of stuff, kind of 60, 80 kilometer an hour type roads. From there, we went out to kind of a more main road, 100 kilometers an hour sort of stuff, and then out onto a dual carriageway. And kind of did everything up to 100 kilometers an hour, practice a bit of overtaking, all that sort of stuff. That's as much as we could do, because on a learner's permit with a bike here in Ireland, you're forbidden from going on a motorway. So yeah, that was great. Had massive confidence then at the end of all of that. Knew for certain then that I wanted to get a bike and get on the road as soon as possible. So then it just came to getting a bike and getting going. So the bike I'm on is a Honda CL500. And I'll give you a bit of a background how I ended up on this bike. I absolutely love this bike. And I think for any learner, any new rider, it's an ideal bike. So how I ended up on this bike, so how I ended up on bikes in the first place was I've always wanted bikes, and I've always been mad into bikes, as I said earlier on, but never had the opportunity. And then I got married and grew up, as everyone does, and then spoke about bikes a good few times to my wife, and it was always, a big no-no, which is, I reckon, probably similar to most partners. They don't want their husband or wife to go out on something that could potentially damage them or hurt them. But I kept plugging away, because I'm persistent like that. Then one day we were over in Spain, and I seen a Honda Rebel 500, and it was really nice. It had been modded up, and it was a lovely looking bike. And I said to her, I said, "Geez, that's a nice bike, isn't it?" And she said, I could kind of picture myself going around on the back of that with you. And that was it. As soon as she said that, that was game over. That was my green light to go out and get myself a bike. So straight away I started researching bikes and, how to get your bike license and would my car license suffice and all that sort of stuff. And that's what led me to doing the IBT. I did some research on bikes. I looked into that Honda Rebel 500 because obviously that was the bike that kicked off the conversation. It turns out, I'm at my height, 6'2", it's not really suitable. It's too low of a bike. Not even that it's so low, it's the distance between the seat and the foot pegs would just be very uncomfortable for me as a rider. So that was ruled out. So then I started looking at similar cruiser style bikes. I was determined to get like a modern classic style because that's the type of bike I wanted. In my early 20s, I would have been looking at stuff like R6s and Gixxers and all that sort of stuff. But in your 40s, your desires change and what you want out of life and what you want on the road changes. So I started looking at other modern classic type bikes. I really liked the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 600 or 650. Super Meteor 650. Yeah, really liked that bike. It was a similar cruiser style to the Rebel 500, but it kind of had the foot pegs kicked out a little bit, which kind of would have been a bit more suitable for me to stretch the legs out and ride. But the more I looked into it, kind of found some mixed reviews on its reliability and stuff like that. And then I looked into insurance, and the insurance companies weren't too enamored about insuring me on it. So I don't know why that is. It's not too much different than the bike I eventually ended up with. So I parked that idea for a while, and then I went looking, and I kind of thought to myself, what do I want out of a bike? What am I looking for? And really what I'm looking for is just something that I can do what I'm doing today. Just go out at a weekend on a nice sunny day and go for a spin to a tourist area. I'm not looking to overtake all the traffic or, race anybody. I'm just looking to watch the world go by and enjoy the environment and enjoy being on the back of a bike. And also a bit of commuting. I've been riding the bike to work since I got it. So I was looking around and I came across a bike called a Honda GB350S. Beautiful little single cylinder put as they call it bike. Gorgeous bike. They're not available to buy in Ireland yet, but I had my heart set on it. I was sold, so I wanted to get that bike. After the Saturday in the IBT, when I'd just done the yard work, I went into the bike dealership in Limerick there, Mescal's Motorcycles. Spoke to Niall Mescal, absolute gentleman of a guy. If you're looking to buy a motorcycle, you won't do better than going to Niall Mescal. So I spoke to him. I said, I'm looking at getting this GB350S. And he said, it's not for you, Sean. It's not for you. And I was like, well, okay. Why is that? I think you'll graduate from it too quickly, he said. He said, it'll be a lovely little bike when you start riding the first few weeks. But once you start going on main roads and looking for a bit more out of the bike, it's not going to be there, and you're going to want to change it, or you're going to fall out of love with riding. He said, I seriously recommend you have a look at something different. He said, if you want the 350, we'll get it for you. That's no problem. We'll sell you whatever you want. But he said, I have a Honda CL500 downstairs. Go have a look with it, see what you think, sit on it, and come back and talk to me. He also said, have you done the road part of your IBT? I said, no, I haven't yet. He said, well, when you do the road part of your IBT, ask Dermot to put you on one of the bigger bikes, like a 700, and see how you feel about that, and then come back and talk to me. So I went down, I had a look at this bike, the CL500, this very bike I'm sitting on. It was a beautiful bike, I really, really liked it. But I kind of thought to myself, it's the first time I'd met Niall then, and I kind of thought to myself, you know, maybe he's just trying to sell me what he has in the showroom at the moment, and he doesn't want to wait to order in the bike or whatever. So I said, I'll go home and I'll think about it, and I'll do the road part of the IBT on Monday, and you know, I'll come back to him then. So as fortune would have it, as I said earlier, when I arrived on to do the road work on the IBT, Dermot had put me on the 700. So at the very first part of that IBT, I pulled out onto the main road, and I kind of pulled over onto the left-hand side of the main road, and I was just getting the feel of the bike. And some young guy in a Volkswagen Golf with an L plate tried to come up on the right-hand side of me in a single-lane road and kind of bully me off the road, which, you know, was a bit of a scare. But I was able to just open the throttle on the 700 and just be gone away from him and get myself out of trouble. And I kind of thought to myself, if I was on a little 300 or 350 there, would I have been able to do that? Probably not. I could have been stuck. I could have had to pull over, let him go, or, you know, could have been in danger. So I thought that was it. That was me sold. That was me sold on a slightly bigger bike. So I finished my IBT, went into Niall in Mescals the following week and said, yeah, I want to buy that CL500. And then within a week I had the CL500. I went and collected it, rode it home from Limerick to where I live in County Clare, which was, I wouldn't say it was scary, but I was nervous about it before I did it, because I'd never ridden on my own without an instructor on a public road, other than a moped or whatever. But yeah, since then I haven't looked back. I'm absolutely in love with this bike. I love taking it out for spins. I commute to work on it most days when the weather is fine, and I haven't got bored of it yet. So one thing I've learned since I've got into motorbikes, since I've started riding a motorbike, and it's a tough lesson to learn, is bikes are not expensive. Motorbikes are not that expensive. But the one thing you learn when you get into bikes is motorbikes are not expensive, but anything associated with motorbikes is very expensive. So I bought this bike for the 7.5 grand, and I probably paid, God, like another 3 grand at least, just for everything that goes with it. You know, between insurance, PPE, locks, covers, helmet, you name it. Like I bought my initial gear, textile trousers and jacket and helmet. I got them all from the same place I bought the bike, and they do a very good deal there. If you buy a bike off them, they give you 20% off the stuff. You know, those first textiles I bought, they're for when you start out. They're really heavy, and you know, sunny weather, you just can't wear them. It's just too hot. So then I went and bought AA rated Kevlar lined jeans with padding, and I love them because I can ride to work, and I can get off the bike and I can go into work, and I don't have to change. But they're not cheap, man. They're expensive. So that's one problem with this stuff, and I'm constantly looking at bike stuff and new stuff to buy, and you know, new jackets, new jeans, new boots. It's constant. Once you get a bike, you're like, oh, well, what else can I buy? You know, and then I bought these cameras and the microphones and everything that goes with it. I mean, I was into photography and video editing before this, and you know, getting the bike just gave me an opportunity to, you know, start this channel and, you know, see where it takes me. I'll be, you know, this is an introductory video telling you how I got into bikes, but I'm hoping to do a lot of trips and take you along with me, and hopefully you'll enjoy the ride. Just coming into the Hinch here, which is a very famous tourist town in the west coast of Ireland. Now we just hang a left here, we'll head out towards the Cliffs of Moher. It's a very famous Lahinch golf club there on my left hand side. The Irish Open or something was there a few years ago, I don't know much about golf, but I know it's a pretty famous golf club. It's a really beautiful part of the world here, I'm very lucky to live here. That's one thing about Ireland is if you have a motorbike, the roads are great. Like, you don't have to go too far to find some nice roads to go for a ride and some nice scenery. It really is a beautiful country. So why am I still wearing the L vest when I've been riding the bike for a while? The law in Ireland states that you can't apply for your test until you've had your learner's permit for 6 months. So I'm still only 4 months, I think, into my learner's permit. So as soon as that hits the 6 months, I'll be able to apply for my test and get my full license, hopefully. Although I think there's a bit of a waiting list for the test once I do apply. Hopefully it won't be too long. My plan when I do get my full license, hopefully next year. Now depends on a lot of things, but I'm hoping to go to South America. There's a tour you can do there on KTM adventure bikes. You rent the bikes. I think Rider Expeditions or something is the name of the company. You can rent the bikes and go from Chile down through Argentina to Patagonia, Ushuaia, to the end of the world. That's something I really, really like to do. But, you know, I need to get some riding experience under my belt before I do something like that. Like, the tour is with a group, and there's a support vehicle and all that sort of stuff, but I really don't want to be lagging behind more experienced riders. So the plan at the moment is a pretty loose plan, is to get my full license, get a bit more experience on this bike. I don't see myself changing this bike. I mean, it's ideal for my purposes. But the plan is to get the full license. And then there is a course you can do in Wales. Actually, a few of them in the UK. They don't have them in Ireland, but I know there's one definitely for sure in Wales where you can do some off-road training on adventure bikes, which I really want to do. You know, get experience on a bigger bike, on an adventure bike, on some dirt roads and off-road and all that sort of stuff. That'll give me the confidence then to do that trip, because I don't believe going all the way down through those countries in South America that every road will be beautifully tarmacked. We'll continue our trip up here by the Cliffs of Moher. Pretty windy out here. That's one thing about this bike, there's no wind protection whatsoever. There's no front windscreen or fairings or anything, and it can be quite an experience on the main roads, on the dual carriageway, when you're doing 100, 120 kilometers an hour. But I suppose that's all part of the experience. This is actually my second time recording this video. I tried to do it last week and oh my god, I had so many difficulties. So coming up here to the visitor centre for the Cliffs of Moher. Cliffs of Moher are out there on my left hand side. You can see a lot of people out there. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but they're out there. And there's O'Brien's Tower up there. On the right hand side here is the parking for the Cliffs of Moher, where you get ripped off. Such a rip. So the way it works is they can't actually charge you for going onto the Cliffs of Moher because, you know, it's nature. It's it's there. They don't. But there's a visitor centre and a car park, and what they do is they charge you per person in your car. So if you arrive up just yourself in your car, it's €10. If you arrive with 2 people, it's €20. 3 people, it's €30. I'm lucky enough that I'm a local, so I can come out here. And I tend to come out here when it's the best time to come out, which is sunset. And at that stage, the car park is closed and the visitor centre is closed, but the scenery is absolutely beautiful. If you are ever visiting this area and you want to go to the Cliffs of Moher, just wait till the evening, wait till sunset. Go for free and enjoy it in the most spectacular time. Getting pretty windy now, up here on top of the hill. So, just coming down the hill here, and as you can see in front of me, out there in the sea, that's the Aran Islands. There's 3 islands out there: Inisheer, Inishmore, and Inishman, I believe. A little bit further on the left-hand side, there's a village called Doolin. It's a beautiful little twee village, coloured buildings. But at the end of Doolin, there's a pier, and you can get a ferry there out to the Aran Islands. Highly recommend it if you're ever a tourist around here, even if you're not a tourist. Go out there. You can rent a bike for the day, cycle around the island. There's some, especially in Inishmore, there's some megalithic forts and some spectacular stuff to see. So at this stage, I'm recording this video. It's the first video for the channel. I don't even know what I'm going to call the channel. I don't even know what I'm going to call myself. But I'll come up with something. But I hope if you like the content, you like and subscribe, because I'm going to continue to make content like this. Probably mostly travelling to weird and wonderful places in Ireland and just waffling, talking shit, talking about bikes, talking about my motorbike experience and getting more experienced. That's one cool thing about bikers. Like every time you pass a biker, they'll wave at you. It's such a cool community. I didn't get into biking to become part of a community, but I absolutely love that fact that anytime you pass a biker, no matter where they're from in the world, they'll give you a wave. They don't care if you've got an L plate or if you've got a 125 or a 1100cc beast. You're one of them. That's pretty cool. So just coming down the hill towards Doolin village here. what you can see in front of me is a part of the Burren National Park. So the Burren National Park, if you don't know, it's an area of natural beauty. Well, I think it's beautiful. Some people don't. It's mostly stone. It's a unique place on the west coast of Ireland where, you know, there's plants and flora and fauna that live there that don't exist anywhere else in the world. The rocks are made of limestone, so there's channels of water that runs between it and under it, and there's massive caves and underground hollows that, you know, people are still discovering to this day. It kind of has a dark place in Irish history because during the time of Cromwell, a pretty horrible guy in terms of Irish history. I know he's important in terms of English history, but he's pretty horrible in terms of Irish history. But he came to Ireland and he committed some brutalities without going into it too much, but he sent a lot of Irish people to live on the Burren. And at that time, Ireland was, you know, a farming nation. It was before any sort of industry or anything like that. So, you know, the Burren is what it sounds like. It's barren land. You can't grow. Nothing lives on it in terms of livestock or vegetables. So basically, he sent the Irish people there to die. But I think it's a beautiful place, and I think a lot of the history of it is beautiful, and it just adds to so many unique things in this country that we have that we don't appreciate maybe as much as we should. This road that I'm about to come onto now is one of my favourite roads in the world. It's just so stunning, especially on a sunny day. there it is in all its glory, my Honda CL500. I thought I may as well end the video by giving you a look at the bike. As I said, I love it. It's perfect for a new rider. It's perfect for me. If anyone's thinking of getting this style of bike, then I couldn't recommend it more. So I think I'll leave it there for this video. It's kind of been a bit of everything. It's been a bit of me talking about how I got into bikes, and a bit of a tourism video and a bit of a spin. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. And I mean, if you like the content and you want to see more from me, please like and subscribe. Certainly subscribe so you can get the updates, and you know, it really helps me out to gauge whether this channel is worth pursuing or not, which I really hope it is. So yeah, again, thanks very much, and hopefully see you in my next video.